Eden Kaz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. P.S. Just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a psychological empath, meditation master, dimensional healer, all the things to help you within this ascension. To learn more about me, visit me at EdenJustBe.com. And let's get this party started. Okay, and then, Kevin, you talked about energy. I get ready, man. I get ready. So if there's anything you want to do to get ready to?
I'm ready. I rolled over this morning and actually got out of bed, so that's always a plus.
Eden, Just Be Spiritual Boom. Oh, in association with the Grassroots Warrior Network. Let me say that again. In association with the Grassroots Warrior Network via Kevin Hoyt, who is on the show with me today. Welcome, Kevin. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent. Not quite as up in vigor as you are. Like people who don't know you. Again, we've talked a couple times behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And this energy is real and it's full time and all the time. And this is thanks for having me, Eden. I'm good.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm pretty sure, based on what I've kind of thought about today, we're going to get into some child trafficking, potentially, stuff going on in Vermont, where Kevin is from. And as always, how this pertains to the Great Awakening, and all is about the Great Awakening. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, and Kevin, I think we will talk about this as well, because I want to get your feedback. I saw the movie on child sex trafficking, The Sound of Freedom, this weekend. So two things. So I got there about 15 minutes early, and the woman, it was at Tinseltown. I'm not sure who owns Tinseltown. But basically she said, hey, the theater is all full except for 3 seats, totally separate in the theater. And then if you want to sit in the front 2 rows, have at it. So it's like, okay, so there were 3 of us. We're all going to sit in various places in the theater. When the movie started, only about a third of the theater was full. Okay, which I've heard lots of this happening. So the movie was really, really good, and child trafficking is hard. I knew it would be challenging to see, but I know this stuff is going on like crazy. Then, and there are so many reviews out there right now that basically say, hey, this is QAnon adjacent. This movie is, there is a propaganda for this movie. Then I came across this very legitimate blog post that talks about Carlos Slim, who is, okay, let me get my notes here too. He is a Mexican business magnate and philanthropist. He sounds a lot like George Soros. For example, he was ranked as the richest man in the world by Forbes 4 years in a row, and this was 2013. So apparently he invested a huge amount in this movie. And he has worked, he spent millions of dollars put towards the Clinton Foundation, and has worked with Hunter Biden. So I don't know what to believe in this, Kevin. And no, okay, let me add this as well. So I'm currently in Ohio. So my state is the 5th heaviest, worst state in terms of human trafficking. And then I decided to look today in terms of connections to Satan worship. Okay, so I got on this site that basically shows the 10 places in the world that are connected to Satanism. Toledo, Ohio was ranked number 4. All right,
it's every state. Yeah, it's every state. You're talking about 800,000 missing children in the United States alone, about 2 million worldwide, right? Vermont state, we tie per capita, because there's not a lot of people here, but per capita, we tie at number 4. Alaska, I think, is number 1. And specifically, it's a cultural thing. So minorities, they're after minorities. But yeah, this is a serious thing. As far as the sound of freedom goes,
yeah,
I think there was a couple different levels there, to be honest. Like
that makes sense.
I'm a bladder to start with. I cry easy, right? I'm an empath. So I cried, and it's a great movie, and I think everybody should see it. It's one of these things we don't want to see, right? But we kind of have to, right? So I hope people go see it. And for the half of the world that has never, ever even thought about this, it's an awesome movie. It's going to open up a lot of eyes. For the other half of the world, like me, I was wide awake for a long time. So I don't want to say I was disappointed, because I know the intention of the movie. And if they did it the way I wanted, it would have never got played. It took them 5 years to play it anyway. In fact, Disney, we know lots of things about Disney now. Disney bought that movie 5 years ago, and they bought it to bury it, essentially. So, you know, the controversies that are going back and forth, I think that's part of the hype. It's like the Madonna theory, media publicity. Any publicity is good publicity. So I think that internal fight, if you will, again, the QAnon thing, right? They're tying it all together for us.
QAnon adjacent is the wording that they're using.
It's increasing hype. And then we see it, those of us that are awake, that attack by Hollywood, by the man, by everybody. Now, here's something else, though. You're absolutely right. The money can't come from and goes back to the Clinton Foundation and Podesta, right? So I think it's had twofold. I think number one, it opens up this half of the world that's never been, experienced. So it's a great movie. People should see it. Over here, we're looking at Tim Ballard and Underground Railroad, and the fact that we've got a direct connection now with Clinton Podesta, and people know about that. So I think this is a fantastic movie. Who's good, who's bad? I don't know anymore. I don't know what bad guy's a good guy and what good guy's a bad guy. I never lost faith in God or the people. And, there is no QAnon. There's Q, who, is a military intel group, if you believe in that, and they're dropping breadcrumbs and clues. And then there's a whole bunch of anonymous people, the anons, that act like a couple billion filtration system, where they take all this info and we kind of cipher, and everybody throws their 2 cents in, and then we come up with our own conclusion. I'm Kevin on. That's what I always say. I make my own decisions. So I listen to everybody, and actually the weirder it is now, the more I look. So that's my take on the Sound of Freedom. Excellent movie, people. I actually went to go see it, and some of the ticket sales that you're talking about, like when I went, I bought 4 tickets, one for me, and then the other 3 I left in the pool, because you can do that, and then there's no excuse if people can't afford this movie. I know there's at least 3 tickets waiting at my local theater, and I think a lot of people have done that. So that movie's there, and if you can't afford it, there's a way to get free tickets. So there's no excuse anymore.
Yes. And to add on to that, trafficking, I'm talking about trafficking in general, sex trafficking, labor trafficking, it has surpassed illegal drugs and gun sales at this point. So it is huge. It is huge. Okay. Why don't I take this moment to read Kevin's bio after we've already been talking? All right. He is a father, deer hunter. And I love this. He says, when people ask my profession, I say superhero every day, saving the world type stuff, Native Vermonter, worked in engineering and the structural steel industry, hosted and produced outdoor TV. He was an outdoor writer, wildlife artist, firearms expert, advocate, world spokesman for the national shooting sports, ran for office in Vermont, several in 2018 and today. Reporting party for RICO, tell me if this is correct, which is the Racketeer Influenced and Corruption Organizations Act.
That's right. We've all been racketeered.
Okay, we'll talk more about that. And the self-identified governor of Vermont. And you told me before, you've been doing this full time, telling what is, for 8 years. Is that correct?
Yeah, roughly 2017, I guess, is where I really came on.
Okay.
To the scene. And when I woke up, I was blind too. I was guilty. I didn't participate. I didn't even vote regular. And then I thought, well, maybe that was the problem. And I think honestly, it's fight or flight. And historically, Vermonters don't make good runners. So here I am.
Okay, well, tell me, we're going to go into that. And let me add to everybody watching and listening, Kevin and I are our truth. I mean, that's what I do. That's what he does. Not to say blindly trust us, but, and we don't know everything, yet we know a lot and we are in it. So how did you first start seeing that something was off balance and that threw
Well,
you
let me
into
stop
this?
right there, Eden, because I always tell people, don't trust me. I'm a deer hunter from Bennington, Vermont. Why the hell would you trust me? But I'm going to, this is how we got here.
Yeah.
I give you the links and the leads and show you how I got to my conclusion, right? And
Hmm.
then you guys get to make your own decision. I just want to make sure you have like all the information. And then I trust you, believe it or not. And it's funny because a lot of people that want to argue with me, when we meet, no, I can't find anybody that disagrees. Like we sit down and if we have a conversation,
Hmm.
you know, the normal, I'm going to say the middle, right? People are awake and aware. It's just these extremists, both sides, that I think we got to get away from. And I'm sorry, what was your question? I think there was a question in there.
There was a question. Excellent. How did you start seeing that things were off balance in our world? What started to awaken you?
Oh man, it's been our whole lives. And everybody, you know, watching or listening, your government doesn't have your best interest, or maybe big pharma's not such a good idea, or the media is not balanced or accurate. These are things we all knew. We all knew this. We couldn't conceive how, you know, the depth and depravity that was going on. But you know, I've known this for my whole life, I guess. I've always been a rabble rouser. My mom told me to question authority, and that's great advice for anybody listening. So I did. So I started looking around, and I guess it was, you know, my personal rights and freedoms. I found my dream career a long time ago. I was traveling around the world with kids and wounded warriors, hunting, which is a pretty good deal for me, a pro TV guy and filming. But I was sick of watching my friends and neighbors suffer, die. I was sick of losing my rights and freedoms. I was afraid I couldn't afford to live in the state that I love with the people that I love. So I dove headfirst into politics. And it's funny because I successfully avoided religion and politics my entire life, like most sane people, right? And then I dove in headfirst, and the stuff that I found was remarkable, remarkable. World headline news scandals. And from there, I was, you know, giving it to my authorities who ignored me. I know why now. I
Hmm.
gave it to the people who kind of laughed at me because a lot of this sounds pretty crazy. But then, like in 2019-ish, probably, I started doing the same thing, but at the same time, where I would take the evidence in hand to our officials, so people got to see me. I'd take you with me on live video, and we'd go to the, you know, the TV station, or we'd go to my sheriff, or I'd go to my police station, or my senator, my judge, and you guys got to see him cower and run. Like, you know, Vermont Senator Dick Sears, the last time I spoke with him, he literally almost got hit by a car, like jumping into traffic, just trying to get away from questions. I'm not violent or aggressive. I just, they know I'm coming. In fact, we have insiders, and they, you know, they have little Kevin Hoyt meetings all across my state. And what they're told is, don't go near Kevin, don't talk to Kevin, don't engage Kevin. Well, that's advantage Kevin. So if I see him now, I jump out with my cell phone. And again, you guys get to see what guilt looks like and decide for yourselves. I don't have to tell you.
So what has given you the oh gosh, the word I keep hearing is balls, and I don't, but the
Yeah,
cojones,
testicles.
well,
I
yeah,
know, man,
to
I
do
met some
this.
women. I've met some women with larger testicles that are, you know, that was part of a cycle too. Like we've been so demasculated. We haven't, me and my man bun, right? Like, I don't know, pussified. How's that? We've been pussified, the male population. And this is one of the big problems. We're all in this together, but here in Vermont State, I really have to give a shout out to the women. And it was all over the, you know, the Gary, the transgender dinosaur, and critical race theory and everything that was happening in school. They're telling us now, like, we don't need parental consent.
Mm-hmm.
There are kids in schools. It's over the top, but they pissed off Mama Bear.
Yep,
And
that's going to be the
Mama Bear
downfall.
is, again, they were really we have Vermont Stands Up here, which is a great, I think Dr. Christine Northrup started Maine Stands Up. And I love their meetings. I go and it's like 80 women and me. Like, guys, we got to get involved. I don't know, you're missing out over there, right? And these women they're warriors too. They're standing up. So I think that was a huge part of at
Mhm.
least getting us started. And finally, where you guys go, men follow. So good job, ladies. Thank you for the push. And guys that are listening, we need a few more. We need a few more men too. Like these guys, these are women. These are the nurturing, caring. That's their half of the job, cutting off heads of monsters and taking out the garbage. That's kind of our role usually, right? And I believe in that too. So, I mean, back to my original, how did I get involved?
Yeah.
I went, again, I threw my hat into the arena in 2018 for the House of Representatives, Vermont House. And I know nothing about politics. So I'm in a November election. I don't even know that we vote in March. That's how political I was, right? But I dove in head first. So if you don't know anything, I have to look at history. And based on history, I needed about 575 votes. My little tiny town. I've lived here for 52 years. I give back to my community. I said, no problem. So I set my goal at 600. I got 609. And the closest Democrat got 1,400. And the other Democrat got 2,000, which was the most in the history of the Vermont House. So that blessing, having my butt handed to me, because back then I thought I could actually win. I actually, I thought I was going to win it. So that forced an election audit. So, oh my God, did we get in with the election audit? And it's an old school audit, if anybody wants to know. I took 5,500 names and 5,500 addresses, and I shouldn't say me, there was a bunch of people that did this. But we said, is this real? Is this real? Do they match? And we come up with 60 to 70% fraud that I can trace back at least to 1975. We released 322 discrepancies. That's a fancy word for errors from my town to the state book of record, right? That's enough for a forensic audit alone, but we couldn't get our elected officials to look at election fraud. Go figure, right? So then I started releasing names. I released over 500 names in a county of 5,500 people. And that was the A's and half the B's. We didn't even get anywhere, but I was giving it to them. And even more impressive, beyond that, we, more impressive than the crime is the cover up. We have 2 documents. That's right. In their words, right? It's on their letterhead, their signature on the bottom, saying that no one ever looked at any of the evidence that we gave them, right? That's alarming. So we couldn't get them to, we couldn't get them to look at it. And like Mike Lindell, who did get them to look, they throw a bunch of lawyers on it and we're stuck. So we had to find a different way. And that's RICO, which is racketeering, tax evasion. I'm going to relate it to the mob. We didn't get the mob for, the cocaine and the murders. We got them for tax evasion. And that's kind of what we're doing. If you look at Donald Trump or Giuliani, and RICO's happening all over. So I became a reporting party for our multi-state federal RICO investigation. I turned in my sheriff and my high bailiff, and the BOLO, which is a statewide issue, law enforcement be on the lookout. The charges listed human trafficking. I'm going to go right back to Sound of Freedom, right? And drug trafficking, murder, obstruction. And that was my problem with that movie is, I mean, this is a real situation. Child trafficking, human trafficking. It's, we have the largest population of slaves right now than ever before on the planet. And it's not just happening in a jungle in South America. This is happening in the White House. This is happening in the agencies and buildings of Washington and the skyscrapers in New York. And guess what? In your little podunk town, this is real. And we're finding out that a lot of it is connected right back to our politicians, to those elite. And then you get into the CPS, Child Protective Services. 2,200 kids disappear every month from state custody, not just the child, but the documents that go with that child. And we're catching that too. I mean, I don't know if you want me to just keep ranting.
Yeah,
I can talk. Go ahead.
Let's pause for just a second, because
Sure.
I want to go into this, because I haven't on any of my episodes really gone into this before. And this is uncomfortable stuff. And I just watched an interview that Kevin had with Kathy O'Brien, and I enjoyed it personally because you were showing stuff and you're just like, same thing with me. So I started this podcast. I probably did 30 episodes by myself, just exposing truths. And there were times I was just sitting there going, this is uncomfortable for me.
Yes.
to tell you guys this stuff and to know that it's true and just be like, ugh. And I had thought about stopping the podcast at that point, and then suddenly I'm like, okay, it's time to have guests. So it doesn't just have to be me sitting here talking about this stuff, that I can have other support and people that know stuff, and just to say, okay, this is the part of the Great Awakening. I'll go into the spiritual aspect for a second. For spiritual people, and Kevin, we're also going to talk about your spirituality in a moment, that it's almost like knowing this, accepting it, but not going, oh, everything's great, I'm just going to accept it and go, make my lasagna dinner kind of thing. Accepting it, and being a part of it, yet being able to rise up in the midst of it. So I do want to discuss more of this, because it gets down into, everybody loves Disney World, and Disney World is just fraught with challenges and government. And like you said, it's all around. So can you go more into that, please?
Well, you can't escape it, unfortunately. And the more we learn, in fact, you want to know, everything I thought I knew turned out to be wrong.
Yes.
And we're talking about, I believe, the shape of our earth, our calendar, our language, religion, obviously, our history, chemistry. Obviously, history is like really, really bad. So everything I thought I knew was wrong. To start with, like, oh my God, that's an eye opener. And it's the same. I'm sorry. Like that Kathy O'Brien, whoever watches that video, I'm sorry in advance. I don't like being the guy that has to tell you this either. But the problem is, I know now. So for me, that's, what kind of a man would I be if I didn't warn other people and do everything that I could? It's like, it's that bad. And I know years ago, people said it's the story that can't be told. And that pissed me off. I'm like, just tell me, I can take it. Right now, I understand.
Interesting. Right.
It's so inconceivable, right? Yes. I used to say unbelievable. It's inconceivable. So you have to look yourself to believe this. I can't tell you. You're going to have to look, and then you're going to be horrified. I hope that video upsets people with Kathy O'Brien. It upset me. Makes me want to bear arms, right? Makes me really, really mad. So that's another tip that I'll give people, especially the child trafficking rabbit hole. When you go into that, that's a consuming rabbit hole. It's deep and dark, makes you angry. It makes me want to hurt people. It really does. So don't stay in there. Like, get in, find out what you need to know, and get the hell out of it. And again, I can't go back to life, so what do you do? That was something else you asked me. What does your average person do? How do we, I'm just an ant. That's my icon up here. That ant is important, right? I ever feel like just an ant? What can you do, right? The power's in numbers, and this is as simple as talking. Click that Rumble button, share, you know what I mean? Tell, if you got at least 2 friends, talk about this stuff. And I always tell people, get involved. I mean, I hope you're not missing this, and it's whatever level you're comfortable at. To go to your town hall and stand at a podium in front of your friends and neighbors, your peers, and talk, it's a little intimidating the first time. So maybe go and listen, watch, hang out for a little while. Next thing you know, you're going to be at that podium too. And, I filed, a couple dozen lawsuits. I'm running for office. I'm doing everything I possibly can, but it's up to you guys. And if you're looking for evidence, they count on us not looking. Pick a local or state project and look at the budget. Right? Your local officials they're just straight up stealing your money. They're price inflating. And then our law enforcement at that level, when they're not molesting our children, they're the one distributing the drugs. And I back the blue. I should add that because that sounded really bad. And then when you get to the judge and senator level, it's a straight up land grab, property grab, right? They get the gold and all the property. So these are horrible things. And the pill that's so hard is like, your entire life's a lie. Your vote doesn't count. You're not really free. And oh, by the way, the United States, is probably one of the biggest bad guys. That's a big pill.
I know. Yes.
And it's not you guys. It's not we, the Americans. And you want to know what's going on in the world, Eden. If we want to cut right to the chase,
let's do it.
The fact that the world is accusing us, specifically the United States Department of Defense, of world genocide. That's a big deal. You want to know why our dollar's crashing? You want to know why, again, there's 132 countries not accepting our money right now. OPEC has decided not to sell us oil. Shipping has basically stalled. Our dollar's gone, right? It's being held up by inflation, and that's about it. It's because we're being accused of world genocide, right? The Department of Defense bought the vaccine through the illegal emergency authorization acts, and they vaccinated the world. And it's not just us. The same when you're looking at Ukraine. Putin is bombing the U.S. biolabs. That's where gain of function happened. COVID was created at the University of North Carolina. And if you guys remember, the college professor and the Chinese spy, the student that were sneaking it back to Wuhan. We were all supposed to look at Wuhan. Wuhan is a U.S. biolab. It's not a Chinese bio. It's in China, but that's Fauci and Obama, right? So I've been saying for a long time, the world picture, we're watching a lot of this, but I think you're going to see Russia also go into Poland. You're going to see North Korea go into South Korea. You're going to see, China go into Taiwan, and it's after our U.S. biolabs. I'm going to reference David Steele, right? David Steele talked about all the U.S. bases, 5,000 U.S. military bases all over the world. They're not for national security. They're for trafficking drugs and children and money. And the DOD, again, I love our military too, right? Just like the FBI was split in half. And again, I'm working with the feds, and I'm working against the feds, and I'm pushing back both ways. In fact, they kind of stopped talking to me because they learned if they tell me I put everything on Facebook because I'm sharing with you guys. Well, there's two courts here. There's the court, who has obviously failed you. No one has faith in the Supreme Court. The courts are not going to bail us out, and we're seeing that. Optic is being played out in front of us so that we can learn, right? So the courts aren't there, but we have that court, and then we have the court of public opinion. Eden, which one's more powerful?
Public opinion, yeah.
I know that. Again, these ants, we outnumber them, 10,000 to 1. And this ant icon, let's talk about the Grassroots Warrior Network for a little bit, because this is pretty impressive too. And again, just like you are a grassroots warrior. Have you ever done a podcast before this?
No. And part of it is I can't stop not sharing this. I mean, I bring it into my work when it's appropriate too, but yet once it's like I am here and talking about I am an American, and even if I'm not doing this, I'm responsible for this. So I'm going to have a voice. Okay, go ahead.
Well, you're not waiting. And again, I believe that, and I still believe in Donald Trump. I do think there's a white hat alliance. And even if Trump's bad, even if it's the Antichrist, that just means he's the first that capitulated. This is bigger and older, and it's not about Donald Trump. So get over that to start with. Right. So again, I think most of this is over, is the other piece of that. But I'm so proud of the people that aren't waiting. I know a lot of people that have these incredible ideas. They're just waiting for the RV. They're waiting for Nasara and Jassara. Why wait, right? So I believe in Donald Trump and the white hats. I do believe they're there, but I wasn't going to risk it. I'm not going to wait for them to, what color is my hat? It's a white hat. We are the white hats. You want to know, the next government? Nice to meet you. Kevin Hoyt, I'm the self-proclaimed governor of Vermont. You want to know the new technologies? Again, I've been talking with patent holders. We got free energy. I've got a generator you can plug your house into and run for 25 years. It runs on air. We have, we have the chemists. We got a way to clean our oceans. We have, cars that run on water. We got, I interviewed the woman, her father designed the underground gravity levitation train controls, all the electronics in the 60s. In the 1960s, guys, we're way behind. So this stuff is here. We just got to let this system crash. So again, back to my network, right? This is, again, we're not just talking about it. This idea went from my mind to broadcast in less than 6 weeks. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to start a network, but this is with no equipment, no experience, no money, right? And what I did is I wanted, as a person looking for the truth, I have to go over here and over there, and I'm all over the map trying to find my favorite people, and we're all spread out. And does Janine have a show up, or what's Michael Jaco saying, right? So I wanted a place where people could go to one spot and get a variety of perspectives, right? All for free too. Like everybody's broke. We can't afford nothing. So I put that out there to 20 of my closest friends. And what do you know? Bam, within 6 weeks. And we put up hundreds of hours of really, really great content. They cut my brake lines a year ago last April. So I had to leave my home and community, right? I get death threats pretty regularly. Mike Gill, he's in the same boat. We've got some great interviews with Mike
Okay,
Gill.
wait a minute.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, I know you told me about this before, but
As a candidate, they cut my brake lines, but it
so
wasn't
yeah,
even
how do
gonna
you
be
feel
fair.
about that?
Well, it started with, there's lots of intimidation. They send,
Yeah,
I was a professional hunter, so they send the dogs in first. So they use the game warden. They tried to, get me for poaching. They tried to get me, there's all sorts of, they tried to character assassination, right? If you
right.
stand up, they're going to come for you. And then it started with a flat tire, and then 4 flat tires and a broken hood latch, and probably opened my gas tank and put stuff in it. And eventually they cut my brake lines, and I think, was my sheriff. Actually, right? So at that point, I was, to be honest, more worried about the people around me. Like, I was supposed to do a live with Mike Gill in New Hampshire. And of course, we got insiders, but the intel said they were going to infiltrate. I also have a warrant, so they're going to follow me back to Vermont and try to invoke a shootout.
Oh
There's
my
so much to say.
gracious.
Like I said, Eden, I don't know. Have you had a fugitive on your show before? Am I your first fugitive?
I've probably had more fugitives, but that, I mean, cutting your brake lines literally. So not only would you potentially kill yourself, but who else
Other
would
people.
you kill?
Well, and what's that say? I mean, I was a candidate for governor,
Right.
and they did that, and the newspapers wouldn't even cover it. They all know because I told them. I told the world. In fact, even as a candidate for governor, the cheat starts right at the beginning. I was never announced as a governor. They wouldn't allow me debate. Whenever there was a debate, I would get in, and the governor and Brenda Segal, that was the top Democrat, they'd jump out as soon as I was in. There was one debate they actually held, and a gentleman named Peter Duvall, he was another man that nobody knew about, right? But if people watch that debate, you'll understand why they don't want to debate me. I felt so bad for Pete. Like, he wanted to crawl underneath the table. He really did, because we got the goods when we bring it. So the other end of this, what do people do is when you get this evidence, and there's plenty of evidence, take it to your officials. That's what you're supposed to do. Go ask them about it. And you don't have to be, rude and obnoxious. What about this? And you take it to them. So that'll get you lots of trespass orders, no trespass orders. And in my case, a warrant. So how the warrant happened, again, it was twofold. And back to elections, everything's connection. We're going to jump all over the map, right? So in 2020, Vermont state was one of 6 states that had over 100% turnout. We had 102% turnout. We had more ballots than legal aged voters. That's an issue, right?
Oh, Lordy.
So I find myself in 2022, after the Lewis Herms Truth Tour, and I'm in California, I hook up with Juan O'Savin, and I end up at an election integrity conference down in Orlando. And now we went from blue jeans and regular people like us to shirt and wingtips and ties and suits. Again, I hung out with Tim Cordova or Seth Kitchell, Dr. Frank. These are the guys. These are the real deal. And we were watching the 2022 cheat in real time 2 weeks before the election. They were inflating all the voter rolls. So the population in every state was growing, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. And then they use those names to vote and get rid of them, and they think we don't know. We've been tracking it for years and years. Those are just stings. We take out a tier, the next tier steps up, we take out that tier. That's how it's been working, all behind the scenes. So I come back from this election integrity conference with a whole bunch of new intel, which of course I release. And within 24 hours, they issued a warrant for my arrest, right? So, and this was 7 days before the 2022 elections. So what happened there again is it goes back to, there's a gentleman named Christopher Bates. That's who they appointed to beat me in 2018 for the House representative member. So I've been targeted ever since. So Christopher Bates has a 19-page criminal NCIC felony record. He held his wife hostage with a shotgun. He punched his sister in the face, multiple batteries on law enforcement and women. He was on the run, a fugitive with a warrant and a bounty when they put him in office, right, to stop me. So he was ordered to not leave the state of Illinois, and obviously as a multiple felon, he couldn't have guns. He was convicted of a felony 4 DUI with injury. He wasn't supposed to leave the state. I got a picture of him 5 days later. The ink wasn't even dry, and he was on Vermont soil shooting a military issue M16. So I've got evidence of a felon, breaking felon. Now, when they appointed him to House, he went on and he passed a lot of gun control for all us other Vermonters, me included.
Okay, hang on just a second. Let me just digest all of this in. Oh,
well, this is insane, but it gets better.
Oh,
so again,
okay, let's go.
We've got a guy that passing gun control for Vermonters while violating felony gun laws himself. As a responsible outdoorsman and somebody who believes in the Second Amendment, I had a problem with that, right? I believe in safe, responsible gun ownership. And again, I'm an advocate for the shooting sports, right? I've done this. I've got the background on this one. So I had a problem and I tried to report that. So what had happened is, I brought it to my police, my sheriff, my attorney general, my town. I brought it everywhere, but it was one of them. So again, they get immunity. Nothing happens. And again, I had a problem with that. But what I was doing, this is when I started giving it to you guys, the public.
Right.
So that was bad. They didn't like that. They didn't want it. So I had a judge issue an order that said I couldn't verbally say Christopher Bates. Did I just break my quarter, right?
Yeah, I think you did.
I couldn't say, and I definitely couldn't post any social media about his crimes, right? So obviously, I hope people listening and watching can agree with me. That's unconstitutional. I have the freedom of speech, and even more important, freedom of the press. I was reporting for Vermont Vault at the time, which is a citizen news agency. That's us. That's you too, Eden, right?
Yep.
So that's where that's. So I had that illegal order, and people, you can watch me break it on live video with my police chief as I receive it. And it didn't slow me down. In fact, it just kind of increased anything. If anything, I started doing more videos is what happened. So at the arrest, the warrant is for me saying and reporting crimes to the people, right? That's why now this warrant's been in effect since October. I've done videos from my courthouse, from the police station. I've been in and out, and my theory here is they don't really want me, because if we go to court, like, who are they going to use? I've got evidence against the judge and the prosecutor, and we're taking them. They're all out. We're removing them. We've removed 67 elected officials in the last year alone. The problem is the public isn't aware. It's all behind the scenes. They resigned, retired, moved. They're just plain missing, like my sheriff. My sheriff, again, I'm the reporting party, Chad Schmidt. He's been gone. He was missing from his post for 3 years. They still aren't telling my town what happened with my sheriff, right? The high bailiff, again, he was on the BOLO. He was just reelected in November, but then he retired in December. John Gannon, my ethics chair, he moved to Wyoming.
Ethics chair? That makes me laugh.
Well, and again, we've got the kitchen cabinet. These are our shadow government. They have secret meetings behind closed doors. Once a week in Vermont State, all of our Democrat supermajority gets together and holds private meetings in the background. So then when we have our regular congressional hearings, of course, there's 12 Republicans anyway. It's all Democrats. But they just whip stuff through because behind doors, it breaks all open meeting laws. I caught them. This was my first contact with Q, actually. I got a note in my car, and it said, hey, go to this not so used platform, use this fake name and this password on this day and check it out, Q. Instead of, we're going to kill you with guns, you Nazi white supremacist. That's usually the notes that I get in my car at my home. So this one said Q. So I checked it out, and I went into this a site called the Kitchen Cabinet. We can trace this back to 1986. But what it was our Democrat supermajority, no Republicans, no independents, no media, no scrutiny, no public, nothing. Totally breaks all of our open meeting laws, right? So I'm in this meeting for 4 minutes without my camera on, and I don't know what I'm into, but I see my Speaker of the House and all the names. John Gannon was one of those names. So I'm in there like screenshot, 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 trying to get as much evidence. I don't even know what I'm into. 4 minutes in, they do a roll call where you have to turn on your camera. Of course, I can't turn on my camera. So I tell them my camera's broke. Boom, I'm out. But in that time, I got 44 names, all Democrat supermajority. It's more than enough for a quorum, right? So then I told the GOP, who told me they weren't doing anything illegal. First, they denied it, came back later and said, oh, no, there's nothing illegal. So the result of that meeting was they had another meeting on security to keep guys like Kevin out. And then because of COVID, they dropped all open meeting laws. So it's legal. Now it's legal in Vermont, and they're still going on today. So much. There's so much to talk about, Eden.
So much. Okay, I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
What are those questions? The first one is, okay. Oh, yeah. If we were going to see some of the videos of you capturing people or getting out, where would we go? To the Grassroots network?
Oh man, they're all over. You know, there's
okay. Give me a good spot.
There's a 4-minute clip on vermontvault.org, vtvault.org. And again, Kevin Hoyt, VT on Rumble. And then Kevin Hoyt everywhere on great shows like this one, to be honest, right? And the Grassroots Warrior Network's a big one.
All right. So if people just do a search for your name, Hoyt. Okay,
I'd never finish, like a little ADD. I'm jumping around, but the Grassroots Warrior Network is spiritual, educational, news, politics, 3 shows a day, 7 days a week. And that's the Mark Atwoods and Michael Jacobs and all those friends I was talking about. So it's a plethora of content, and it's got something for everybody. And I'm so...
Oop, I just lost your sound. Hang on just a minute. Ooh, that's never happened. Okay. Oh wait, there you come back. Okay, let me put it time on that 9:44.
I don't think they like my content, is what it is. And I wouldn't even edit that out. Show them people, because this is part of the censorship. You know, I've been on David Nino Rodriguez, Nino's Corner. I've been on Nino 3 times. All 3 times, he not only loses the show, his entire channel gets wiped out. And I can't imagine why, you know. You want to talk about human trafficking, you want to talk about child trafficking, make some big connections. Again, Chad Schmidt, my sheriff. Oh, Chad Schmidt, again, there's ties to a place called Sunrise Daycare. Bennington, we know this, again, on paper, it's known as the Bennington County Child Care Association. And these are key words for people who want to look. If you see something that says association or trust, look at it, okay? So the Bennington County Child Care Association has a matching EIN with the Mount Anthony Preservation Society. So an EIN number is an individual, unique, federal identification number for your business. It's like a fingerprint. My business can't match your business for any reason, especially if they're different tax bases. So yeah, it's a unique individual business number. They shouldn't match for any reason. The Mount Anthony Preservation Society is a nonprofit that's owned by Judge James Colvin, another missing official here in Bennington, Vermont, right? So essentially, these are business fronts for embezzling and money laundering. And I don't think it's just your taxes. So when I say, you know, the Bennington County Child Care Association, Bennington County Regional Alcoholics Anonymous, we know that as Turning Point. We have the Vermont, New Hampshire Christmas Tree Association. We're getting a little bit bigger. The Vermont Sheriff's Association has a matching EIN with my judge's nonprofit. This is getting a little bigger, okay? So again, back to the Sunrise Daycare, not only does it have a matching EIN, it has what the FBI calls a pedophile symbol in their logo. This isn't Kevin Hoyt or Eden. This is what the FBI says is a pedophile symbol. It's called Sunrise Daycare in Bennington, Vermont.
And I'll showcase that if you're watching this on video. I'll put those symbols up.
Okay, yeah, I'll send you some links for that actually, Eden.
Oh, I've
So
got them.
not only does it have if you look at the woman, her name is Cindy Tumeyer, that runs the money for Sunrise. You'll see she runs the money for 3 or 4 of the other shell companies as well. It's all internalized. So again, in 1986, they covered up sexual misconduct with children at the Child Advocacy Center that's run by the Vermont Department of Children and Families, by the way. That's got the matching EIN with my judge and the pedophile logo. Who's they? They, my chief of police and my town lawyer, covered up sexual misconduct with children at this Child Advocacy Center. So my chief of police, his name was Rick Gauthier. He resigned under controversy, and then he went on to run the Vermont State Police Academy for the next 20 years. That's where they do the recruitment and retention. My lawyer back then was named Rob Wilmington. Rob Wilmington gave that job to his business partner, Merrill Bent. Merrill Bent is still the town lawyer for Bennington today. And then Rob Wilmington went on to run Vermont Digger, who is the largest media publication in Vermont state. And I'm just trying to set up the connections here. The person in charge of missing people is James Baker. That's the commissioner for the Department of Corrections. So now if you look at your for-profit prison and police system, that's really slavery, banking system, and about human trafficking. What happens to your kids after they put you in jail or you go to rehab? What happens to your children? That's what it's about. Just like the immigration. It's not about the jobs and the resources and housing and votes. It's about the children. Like thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of immigrants are losing their children. People, we got to look at that, right? So that's what it's really about. So I'm going to show you another one. Britney Spears, when they took away her children, they sent them to Vermont State. Did you know that?
They did. I did not know that.
They did. They sent them to a place called Overcoming Barriers. Now, Overcoming Barriers is in multiple states. You guys can check that out too, including Canada. So Overcoming Barriers is we closed them down for human trafficking in January of 2021, the place they sent Britney Spears' kids.
Okay, so to put in there too, Britney has been part of the Disney system for forever. This all okay. Go ahead.
Well, and a victim is probably as well as an abuser. But Britney, yeah, her kids were taken away, and the doctors, the therapists that took them away weren't even licensed. They just made that shit up. Right. And they took her children away. So she's definitely a victim in this too. But the guy that runs that is named Jim Mindell. Jim Mindell's a pedophile. We're going to put him in jail, right? Or he is now. He's gone. All these guys are gone. Everybody that I just mentioned is missing. They're disappearing. But Jim Mindell, we've got lots of pictures of him with Bernie Sanders, the real Bernie too, not the guy you're seeing on TV. So we got the Bernie Sanders connections. But if you look at the donors and the board for Overcoming Barriers in Vermont, it's the who's who of Vermont rights and democracy. It's my Lieutenant Governor, David Zuckerman. People should ask David why he was involved in supporting a camp we closed for human trafficking. Again, Overcoming Barriers. Doug Hoffer, who is my state auditor. Jane Kitchell, Senator Jane Kitchell, right? We got Jane Sanders, Bernie's wife. She's in it too. And along with the higher education, we can make all these connections. So even worse, this is owned by a woman named Marjorie Slavek. Marjorie Slavek is a family court commissioner.
How do you remember all these names?
It's not me, it's God.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you just banned.
So Marjorie Slavek is a family court commissioner from California, right? And again, this is where we get into the judiciary and the bar. There's a lot of lawyers in the private sectors involved here too, bankers, all the way through. So Marjorie Slavek, again, is a human trafficker, and that led us to JAMS, JAMS, another research homework project for your listeners. JAMS is our private judges. So Marjorie, this is how we found out about private judges. Marjorie is a private judge. So Judge Sontag, this is another missing judge in Bennington, Vermont. Judge Sontag from Vermont is also Judge Sontag in Nevada. So if you and I were married, we can go see Judge Sontag in Nevada. His day rate's like $35,000, but for 35 grand, we can jump to the head of the line. There's no public or media scrutiny. We get a judge's signature on the bottom of it, which is really cool for us if you can afford it, those elite, right? The problem there is there's no such thing as a private judge, and he's not licensed to practice in Nevada. And none of these guys are paying taxes. Hashtag RICO. This is what we're talking about. All 50 states have members of JAMS. You have a judge in your state that belongs to JAMS. You should ask him about it. Don't ask me. I'm a deer hunter. Go look for the information. It's on my social media. You can research yourself. If you don't trust me, verify. But then take that shit to your officials. Go ask your judge what he thinks about it. It's probably going to get you a no trespass order. You might
or your brake lines cut or something.
Yeah, I hate to say that. I'm sorry. A warrant. Go ahead.
Tell me about your connection now with God and some of the stuff that you've discovered through all of this about more.
Well, I've always believed in God. I consider myself a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. I think he's my Lord and Savior. In fact, I talk with him now. This is incredible. My mom always told me to give it to God, actually, and I never understood it. My entire life, I never got it.
So were you connected to religion, but yet didn't fully understand it?
I want to make a separation between religion and spirituality, because I always believed in God. I always hated organized religion, the man part, right? And now when I look, again, I just told you I'm Christian. I was raised, again, my father was Episcopalian. My mom was Roman Catholic. My grandmother had a crucifix in every room. She went to mass 3 times a week. Like, it was, my grandma was rough, man. Like, again, that disciplinary, hardcore. But I never had to go to catechism. I never had to do any of those things. I used to go with friends every once in a while, which, to be honest, we'd skip most of the times. I'd go with them and then we'd go off. And I've always, again, why was I avoiding that? Now, in hindsight, I know. And I've been on this spiritual journey my whole life, and I didn't even know it. Eden, I thought I was traveling the world chasing deer and girls, but it turns out there was a lot more to it. I was establishing this network that I need for now. And, you know, part of the ascension process that we're talking about is being able to accept the good and the bad too.
Yes,
bad stuff happens. So realizing it's happening for a reason, finding the blessing in it, and then turning it around, that's part of your internal happiness. That's inside you. Again, it went from the story that can't be told to now they're like, you know, Kevin, why are you asking me? You know the answers, it's in you. And that used to drive me crazy too, but now I get it. We do know. And the problem is when we're scared, we look for confirmation, we look for outside resources. Everybody watching this video knows the truth. You don't have to ask me or you. You know it. It's inside you, right? And it's as easy as doing the right thing. All this has led me, again, to the belief, and I know now that we're eternal. I can show you the government documents where your government knows it too. We don't die. We're eternal. So if that's true, and I believe it is, then nothing else really matters. It's all about literally doing the right thing. So we're in this giant God school we call Campus Earth, trying to negotiate our way back to source, God, whatever you want to call her, right? All religions have been hijacked. In fact, religion is probably one of the worst things that ever happened to mankind. If you look at Jehovah's Witness, go look at the Kingdom Hall, their headquarters in Norway. It's shaped like the giant pyramid. It's even got the all-seeing eye. If you want to talk about the Christians, how many people died during the Great Crusades? How many people died for God? Did you know the King James Version of the Bible is copywritten by the Windsor family? The Windsors, that's England, right? So we get 66, it's a Masonic number, out of the 700 plus books. And the same with the Quran, or the same with the Buddhas. All of our religions have been hijacked. Even the Freemasons, I think they started as good and they were hijacked. So the devil's been here for a long time. He was cast to earth, and he's had a long time to corrupt us. And it's all been, you know, greed and corruption, depending on what our level. But I think we talk a lot about aliens. What are the first 4 letters in aliens? A lie, right? I think that's demons. I think that's Nephilims. And I don't believe in aliens anymore. I don't believe in space anymore. We got to make your viewers think I'm completely nuts before I leave. I'm running for office. That's destroy all my political aspirations in one view, right? But I don't believe in space, at least the way you and I were taught. All of us were taught. I don't believe in that anymore. I believe we live in Terra, which is the land inside the ice ring. And then beyond that would be extraterrestrials, right? I think it's more word magic, spell casting, and grammar fraud. Man, this is so deep and complex. I sucked at spelling. Or did I? Maybe that was for a reason
right.
too.
Maybe there's for a reason. Okay, when
Well,
you're talking about all of this, is it like I find myself sometimes going, oh my God, that just came out of my mouth and this is what I'm seeing. Like just to take a second, go, whoa, and then go, oh, okay. Well, this is my truth. This is,
it's the way it is. You
oh well.
started with that too. We're here to tell the truth, and I'll tell everybody this is my truth.
Mm-hmm.
This is my conclusion. This is my opinion, my hypotheses, right? But you guys get to decide for yourself.
Yes.
And this is we got a pretty advanced class now. Everybody, when I went from Lewis Herms in Anaheim, regular people, down with the suit and tie people, when we weren't on camera, they were talking about reptilians. Okay, so this is happening. The problem is they're suit and tie people, and they're not going to come on camera and tell that. You've never met a governor like me, right? Because I'm interested and I'm looking and researching that stuff. It doesn't mean I can't talk about economic growth and development or my opioid policy, or we got the shit to to fix stuff. But this is part of the past of learning. Some people are like, why does it matter? The calendar is wrong. I laughed at people that had the flat earth theory. I laughed at them. Of course the earth is round. You guys are ridiculous. In fact, I'd kick them off my channels. You're not even smart enough to have a conversation with me.
No way.
But then I stopped laughing and I looked. In fact, I can tell you again, another one of our anchors is Nick Alvear. I don't know if you know who Nick is. Good Lion TV, Follow the Cabal, Holly Weird. He's done a
I'm sure I know of him, but yeah, all right.
Oh my God. Good Lion TV, for anyone who is interested, is an incredible source on anything deep state and cabal. But again, I was watching all that, and again, he was blowing my mind with all this intel 5 or 6 years ago. He had a whole bunch of flat earth stuff on there, and I skipped that because I knew. Like how ridiculous. This is funny for me now because I knew. And if you know out there, if you think you know, you're probably wrong. That means you have a closed mind, and you can't, there's no room for expansion. You got to have an open mind here. So consider the possibility that our government lied to us, right? So Nick had one video on there. It was called The Invisible Enemy, part 1 and 2. Now, does that sound like flat earth? That doesn't sound like flat earth to me. So I clicked it. It's all about flat earth. He lied to me, but he's a brilliant storyteller and editor and producer. So like 20 minutes into that video, I paused the video and I got a pen and paper out because I did the Pythagorean theorem every day of my life for a decade and a half as an engineer. And I did the math. I literally just did the math and I went, oh my God. And then I started testing it for myself, and I've proven their globalist idea wrong. So how I can leave this with people is I'm not really sure. I believe it's actually flat based on a whole bunch of things. And we can get into that if you want to go there. But what I know is what they told us is wrong. Like really, really wrong. Not just partially wrong, way wrong. And it's more ridiculous than even what we're talking about, if you really think about it. The first test that I did, and anybody who wants to debate me, open floor debate. We'll do a point counterpoint, and it's not a debate. It's just a conversation. We don't even have to fight. This is fun for me. I stood on a boat in the ocean and I filmed another boat 100 miles away. This is professional grade camera gear, large capacity zoom 4CCD pro grade camera. Like I said, I was a pro. I hosted and produced outdoor television for another decade and a half of my life. So I'm on a boat in the ocean, filming another boat 100 miles away. We got GPS locators, communications with the second boat, and I did that. That's impossible on a round Earth. The second boat would, based on their math that they gave us, 6 times 6 times 600, 666, not a coincidence. That's the circumference of the Earth. If you look at that, that second boat would be almost 1,000 feet beyond the curve, right? Because of the curve of the water, the shape of the Earth. No amount of zoom would bring that boat back into view. No amount of zoom under any conditions on a round Earth on a globalist agenda theory. But I did that. I filmed another boat 100 miles away. If anybody can explain how I did that, I'd love to hear your guess out there. And I don't know if it's a planet. Like I said, I don't believe in space anymore. I think we get to different dimensions or realms, and we get there through stargates and portals, not on rocket ships. I don't think we've ever been to the moon. I think we live on a flat earth underneath a firmament. Like, I can give you so many references, but we've never been able to say that before.
Just be
And
practice.
Step one is exposing them, is telling your story. So everybody watching, your mom was right, man. You are special. I think you're a unique individual person. Your mess is your message, and your mess is being your life. It gets better with age, age, right? So all you have to do is come out and tell your story. So a lot of people watching this today, I hope you lit up. I hope you said, ooh, I can relate. I can, and you can add to my story, right? You got a piece that you can add to. So that's as simple as this is. You put your piece on the table. Don't be afraid. We should never be afraid about talking. Why should we be afraid to discuss?
Okay, so this is actually really what I like for the practice too. Like, you are special. Share your story, even if it seems out there or crazy, because there is so much crazy stuff happening right now, and it is all true. So just be it, say it. All right,
everybody watching, you have a unique individual story. I think you're psychic. I think you're telepathic. I think you have amazing gifts once you figure out, and our words and our thoughts,
all of it,
really matter. And that's
so good. And I don't know about you, I am noticing now that more people are waking up, that there is more consciousness, especially from 2 to 3 years ago. How are you seeing that?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, all that, my family that disowned me and all those friends that were laughing, they're starting to come back because most of our conspiracy theories came true. We need new conspiracies because all our shit came true, right? But my message to them people, in fact, my podcast is for my haters. Most of the people watching this right now are going to be okay. They're already here. They're watching this stuff. They're awake. They're watching. I want the people who don't know. I want to brace them for impact, because all the people that are laughing and ridiculing me, I love you. I love you from the bottom of my heart, man. I don't want anybody to die. I want to help as many people as I can. So that's why I'm here, is literally for you guys. And that's part of the frustration too. Like, we're putting our heart and soul, we're risking our lives, we're doing the work and the research, and we're giving it to people who want to argue with us, because we're telling them, I'm sorry you were fooled. We were duped. Me too. That's my guilt
all
too.
Of us.
Blind. I didn't know. None of us knew. We couldn't have known. It's okay. Get
Right.
over that.
To this depth.
Ego is a big part of this too. Get over all of that, right? And come join the colony. Back to my little ant. I love that ant. Isn't he cool?
He's very cool. He's very cool. And to add on to that too, that's part of my work right now. This cognitive dissonance is to be there for people, because I've cried crocodile tears when I've seen stuff, but I already had a good foundation that I could handle this from a spiritual perspective. Folks that are coming into this and just seeing the world crashing down in front of them, that is why I do the work that I do. I am here for you. I am ready for, as this grows, to be there for people, to help lift them up out of the rubble, because I'm not in the rubble anymore. So I can do that.
I think you were ahead of your time, actually. I think your role, and I know a whole bunch of people, I think you're the next wave. You're on deck, right? So we're going through I guess a history class right now.
Yes.
We're learning the hidden history, but then we're going to have when this breaks, we're going to be so busy crying on each other's shoulders, and it's so horrific. If it wasn't for med beds and all these great technologies and Nasara and Jasara, I don't know if we would survive it, just from a compassion level. Like, there's some deep, dark, horrible things that are about to break, and we're gonna have to rely on each other. That's all we really have is each other, which is also how I know we're going to be okay. But I think you and a whole bunch of other people are there for that healing process. Like, you're not quite where we need you yet. Well, obviously you are, and it's a slow process, but I think you're going to be so overwhelmingly busy. Like, good luck to you, Eden, because we all have a tough
I'm ready.
road.
That sounds like a great place to end it. Kevin, it was so nice. I know we've chatted before, but it's so nice to chat today and be connected. And yeah, you're doing some powerful, powerful stuff. So I appreciate that. And hopefully everybody else does as well.
We are too. We're all in this together.
Yes, we are.
The law of one, the book of one, the power of one, where we go one, we go all. Mm-hmm. That's you. Everybody watching. You're the one. You're the one, and you're the one we're waiting for. So don't ask me what we're waiting for anymore.
Take it back. Okay, I'm going to stop recording. Kevin, can you hang on just a second?
Sure.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
bye. So cool of you to be here. I went from being off most social media to being on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or True Social, and you might be watching this on YouTube, Rumble, or BitChute. Or you might be listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I'm on over 19 directories at this point. So connect, comment, subscribe, like. Oh, and my intention is to have a new episode out Wednesday of each week. Oh, Lordy, more to come.